The day has finally grown quiet. Whatever the hours have placed upon your shoulders, you may gently set them down for a little while. There is nowhere you need to hurry, nothing you must solve before sleep arrives. Allow your breathing to become a little slower. Let the world beyond your room soften into silence, while another world, far older and far quieter, slowly comes into view. If these peaceful journeys through history bring you comfort, you are warmly invited to join us again by subscribing to Human and Time Together. We will continue wandering through places where time still moves with the patience of mountains. Now, let us begin. Long before the first prayer is whispered each morning, before the bronze horns awaken the valley with their deep voices, before butter lamps send their small circles of warmth into dark halls, the mountains are already awake. They have been waiting through the long Himalayan night. Their ridges gather the final stars, while the valleys below remain hidden beneath shadows so deep that even distance seems to disappear. The air is astonishingly clear. At this altitude, more than 3,500 meters above the sea, the sky possesses a depth of blue that seems almost untouched by the passing centuries. The thinner atmosphere allows sunlight to travel with unusual sharpness, carving every cliff into precise lines, while leaving the narrow gorges filled with cool darkness. Far below these peaks, the Indus River continues its ancient journey across the land. It has watched kingdoms rise, caravans arrive, pilgrims depart, and generations disappear like snow beneath the spring sun. Yet the river speaks with the same patient voice it has always known. Hidden from its broad valley, sheltered inside a secluded gorge nearly 5 kilometers southeast of Leh, another quiet world rests against the mountain itself. From a distance, almost nothing reveals its presence. Stone walls borrow the colors of the surrounding cliffs. Flat roofs merge with the terraces of the slope. Narrow passages disappear into the folds of the mountain until architecture and landscape seem to have reached an old agreement, each allowing the other to exist without disturbance. This quiet concealment was no accident. The monastery was placed where the mountain could become its first guardian. Invisible from the open valley floor, it remained protected from the movements of armies that once crossed these vast regions. While soldiers searched the wider landscape, the monastery rested quietly inside its rocky embrace, hidden behind the natural curves of the gorge. Silence here became another form of protection. Yet despite its secluded appearance, these mountains were never isolated from the wider world. Small feeder paths wound carefully through the valleys, connecting larger trade routes that stretched across Tibet, toward Central Asia, and eventually into the Indian plains. Merchants carrying wool, salt, precious goods, and countless necessities followed these difficult passages where every journey demanded patience rather than speed. The mountains rarely welcomed haste. Each step required attention. Every changing cloud could reshape the day's path. Wind and stone became companions as familiar as fellow travelers. Somewhere along these routes, quietly overlooking the movement of commerce below, the monastery observed without interruption. Goods continued onward. Seasons continued onward. Time itself continued onward. In the early 17th century, during the reign of King Senj Namgyal, this hidden sanctuary entered a new chapter. Re-established in its present form in the year 1630, under the patronage of the Namgyal dynasty, It became the principal seat of the Drupa Kagyu tradition within Ladakh. Royal support provided land resources and taxation rights that allowed the community to flourish until it became the wealthiest and largest monastic institution in the region. Yet nothing about its appearance speaks of wealth in the language familiar to cities. Its riches are measured differently. The mountain offers stone, the valley offers timber, the earth itself offers clay. From these simple gifts, generations of builders created walls capable of enduring conditions that few places on earth could tolerate. Summer sunlight may warm these slopes beyond 30 degrees. Winter nights may descend toward 30 below freezing. Heavy snow settles upon the roofs. Fierce winds sweep through narrow passes. Beneath everything, the mountains themselves occasionally shift with the slow force of earthquakes. Still, the monastery remains. Its walls rise from local stone gathered from nearby slopes, each irregular block placed beside another with patient hands. At the base, many walls reach more than a meter in thickness, gradually narrowing as they climb upward. Their immense weight settles confidently into the mountain while keeping the highest stories lighter, allowing the entire structure to rest with quiet stability. Between the stones lies no rigid certainty. Instead, clay-rich earth mixed with straw, gravel, and the hair of yak or goat forms a living mortar. Unlike harder materials that resist movement until they suddenly break, this humble mixture accepts small motions with quiet resilience. When the earth trembles beneath the monastery, the walls possess a gentle flexibility that helps preserve the whole. Strength here does not come from refusing change. It comes from yielding just enough. Hidden inside the stone courses, long beams of poplar and willow stretch horizontally through the walls like unseen ribbons. At careful intervals, these timbers bind the masonry together, helping distribute the forces that earthquakes carry through the mountains. Heavy wooden lintels rest above doors and windows, quietly sharing the immense weight of the stories above. The mountain teaches its own engineering. Nothing is excessive. Nothing exists without purpose. Above these walls, broad flat roofs extend beneath the open sky. Great beams support smaller poles. Layers of willow branches rest upon them before thick waterproof clay is carefully compacted overhead. Each spring, after winter loosens its grip, the roofs must once again be rolled and pressed by hand, restoring the dense surface that protects the rooms below from melting snow. Maintenance is never separate from life. The monastery survives because every season asks something of those who live within it. As the first rays of morning finally slip over the surrounding peaks, sunlight enters the central courtyards. Stone that remained cold throughout the night slowly begins collecting warmth. The enclosed spaces shelter themselves from the wind while absorbing the generous light of the high Himalayas. Throughout the day, these courtyards quietly gather the mountain sun before releasing its stored warmth back into the surrounding buildings as evening approaches. One day each year, these same open spaces welcome masked sacred dances. On countless other days, they simply receive the changing light. Above them, the immense sky remains brilliantly clear. The air, carrying only about 2/3 of the oxygen found at sea level, asks every visitor to breathe more slowly. Each inhalation becomes noticeable. Each exhalation lingers a little longer in the cool mountain air. Here, even breathing joins the rhythm of the landscape. Nothing encourages haste. The wind arrives when the valleys invite it. The sunlight moves exactly as the mountain allows. The monastery does not attempt to conquer this world. It quietly belongs to it. And as the morning grows a little brighter, somewhere beyond the stone walls, still hidden from our sight, another ancient sound patiently waits for the coming day. The stillness before that first sound is unlike any silence found in the lowlands. It is not empty. It is full of quiet expectation, as though the mountain itself has drawn a slow breath and is holding it gently between earth and sky. Then, from somewhere deep within the hidden complex, a single note begins to travel. It does not hurry. The long copper horn releases a voice so deep that it seems less like music than a movement inside the stone. Its low drone slips through narrow passageways, crosses the open courtyards, and glides into the gorge where towering cliffs answer with softened echoes. The mountain does not simply hear the sound. It receives it, carries it, and offers it back again slower than before. High above the valley floor, where the air is thinner and each breath contains fewer unseen gifts of life, the voice of the horn stretches farther than its makers could ever see. The reduced density of the atmosphere changes the way every note wanders through the cold morning. The higher tones dissolve more quickly into the vastness, while the deeper ones linger, pressing gently against rock walls polished by countless winters. For a little while, the gorge itself seems to be chanting. The echoes fade so gradually that no one could say exactly when silence returns. Perhaps it never truly does. Perhaps silence is only another shape that sound learns to wear after enough distance has passed. Within the monastery, wooden doors open one by one. Hands weathered by years of mountain winters rest briefly upon smooth timber polished by generations before them. The wood carries a faint memory of sun, though dawn has only just arrived. Beyond each threshold, narrow corridors awaken without haste, their worn stone floors cool beneath carefully measured footsteps. Nothing here asks anyone to move quickly. The day unfolds with the patience of flowing water. A monk carries a long bundle wrapped in cloth beneath one arm. Inside are pecha, the traditional scripture leaves that rest not inside bound books, but as long, carefully ordered pages protected between wooden boards. They have passed through many hands before reaching his own, each reader adding no mark upon them, only another quiet morning to their long existence. The pages themselves seem almost weightless, yet the words they preserve have crossed centuries. Elsewhere, another monk pauses beside a row of brass bowls waiting in the half-light. Each receives fresh yak butter with deliberate care. Cotton wicks are gently straightened, their tips trimmed so the coming flames will burn steadily rather than smoke. Hundreds of small lights will eventually shimmer across the assembly hall, but each begins with the same modest gesture of patient attention. A single lamp is never hurried into brightness. Its flame grows as quietly as dawn itself. Soon the faint fragrance of warmed butter begins to mingle with the dry resin carried from smouldering juniper. The smoke rises in thin pale ribbons, carrying the woody scent of mountain shrubs gathered long before winter closed the high passes. Juniper, rhododendron leaves, sweet grasses, and carefully chosen herbs surrender themselves to the glowing embers, filling the still air with an aroma that is both earthy and clean, as though the mountains themselves had found a way to breathe indoors. The scent settles gently into timber beams, darkened by countless seasons. It lingers within woven cloth. It disappears into stone. Even after the visible smoke has vanished, something of it remains. The monastery keeps memories not only in manuscripts, but also within wood, earth, and air. Soft footsteps continue toward the great assembly hall. Carved wooden columns rise patiently beneath heavy beams. Their painted surfaces touched each morning by shifting bands of sunlight that enter through carefully placed openings. The light never arrives all at once. It travels slowly across the floor, climbing one pillar after another, until the hall seems to awaken by degrees, as though morning itself were offering a respectful bow before entering. Rows of low carpets wait in quiet order. No voice announces where anyone belongs. Years of practice have made such things unnecessary. Those who have spent the longest time within these walls naturally find their places nearer the center, while younger monks settle beside them with the ease of familiar routine. Nothing appears arranged by command. The rhythm has become part of daily life, as natural as snow gathering upon the high ridges each winter. At the far end of the hall, the elevated seat of the head lama rests beneath the calm gaze of sacred figures whose presence has overlooked generations of changing faces. Gold catches the earliest light with remarkable gentleness. It does not shine to impress. It simply receives the morning. Nearby, the first pages of scripture are unfolded. Paper brushes softly against paper. Wood touches stone. Fabric settles against woven carpet. These are small sounds easily overlooked elsewhere, yet here they possess an unusual clarity. At this elevation, where the air carries every quiet movement with delicate precision, even ordinary gestures seem worthy of listening. The first voices emerge so gradually that they seem born from breathing itself. Deep within the chest, each tone begins before passing the throat, where careful control shapes it into something richer than speech alone. Beneath every sustained note lies another, hidden yet unmistakably present, allowing a single voice to carry more than one layer of sound. The harmonics drift upward while the deeper foundation remains steady, as though earth and sky had chosen to sing together without separating. No singer seeks to stand apart. The voices become one current. The measured sweep of heavy cymbals glides through the hall, not with sudden brilliance, but with deliberate restraint. Metal brushes against metal in a motion refined across centuries, releasing a broad shimmering wave that gently dissolves into the deeper resonance of the chanting. A drum follows. Its rounded body answers with slow pulses that seem almost identical to a peaceful heartbeat heard through thick winter clothing. The rhythm asks for nothing except presence. Outside, a faint breeze slips into the courtyard. By afternoon it will climb upward through the valleys, drawn by the warmth of the sun upon the mountain slopes. Long after sunset, colder air will quietly descend once more through the same narrow gorge. Day and night exchange their invisible rivers without argument, just as they have done for ages beyond memory. The monastery does not resist these unseen currents. Windows, walls, courtyards, and roofs have learned to live beside them. Stone gathers warmth. Clay releases it. Timber bends without complaint. Even the mountain seems to understand that endurance is not achieved through hardness alone, but through an endless conversation with change. Perhaps this is why the walls remain standing. Not because they refuse the passing years, but because they have never expected the years to remain still. Somewhere beyond the brighter halls, where daylight hesitates before entering, deeper chambers wait behind heavy doors. Their silence belongs to another rhythm entirely, one illuminated not by the morning sun, but by the quiet persistence of countless small flames. And there, in the oldest shadows, another chapter of this mountain sanctuary continues without ever announcing its beginning. The corridors become narrower as they wander farther into the heart of the mountain, where daylight no longer arrives with certainty, but lingers at the thresholds, content to leave the deeper chambers to gentler companions. Here, brightness is measured not by the sun above the peaks, but by the quiet devotion of countless small flames that have watched one another through seasons beyond memory. Each but a lamp offers only a modest circle of light. Together, they soften the darkness without ever attempting to conquer it. Their warmth gathers close to the brass bowls that hold them, a warmth one might feel only by lingering nearby. Hands resting quietly in the cool mountain air before drifting toward the gentle heat. The scent of rendered yak butter rises almost unnoticed, mingling with timber that has absorbed centuries of incense, until wood and fragrance seem no longer separate. The beams overhead carry delicate traces of soot. Not the hurried stain of neglect, but the slow handwriting of time itself. Every morning another thin layer settles, almost invisibly. Every careful hand that tends the lamps ensures the smoke never grows too heavy, for above the halls hang woven cloths whose painted stories deserve the same patient guardianship as the sacred words spoken beneath them. Care has become a form of prayer. No one announces it. It lives quietly inside ordinary tasks. A monk pauses before one of the lamps whose flame has grown uncertain. With the lightest movement, he straightens the cotton wick. The glow steadies immediately, as though grateful for such little attention. There is no celebration for this small act. It disappears into the morning like a snowflake settling upon stone. Perhaps many things endure only because someone quietly noticed them. Beyond these warm chambers, another room waits behind heavier doors. Its entrance reveals almost nothing. The air cools by a scarcely perceptible degree. Windows are absent. The mountain itself has become the outer wall, holding back the brilliant sky, while allowing only the trembling glow of butter lamps to breathe within. Darkness here possesses remarkable depth. Eyes require patience before shapes begin to emerge. At first there is only shadow, then slowly outlines gather themselves. Ancient beams stretch across the ceiling, their surfaces darkened by years of rising smoke. Along the walls rest objects whose forms seem carved as much from silence as from wood and metal. Animal pelts hang without movement. Ritual implements remain suspended from heavy timbers. Brass catches an occasional flicker before retreating once again into the dimness. Nothing asks to be admired. Everything simply exists. In this quiet chamber dedicated to the monastery's protective guardians, stillness carries a different texture than the open courtyards outside. There, sunlight fills empty space with warmth. Here, darkness wraps gently around every object until even time seems to move with softer footsteps. The mountain shelters both. Outside, the vast sky reminds every traveler of distance. Inside, these secluded rooms invite attention toward what cannot be measured by horizons. A small flame trembles as someone passes. Its reflection briefly appears within a ritual vessel, before dissolving again into shadow. No object remains illuminated for long. Each receives the light only for a passing moment before allowing another to share its place. Perhaps this, too, is a quiet lesson offered without words. Nothing keeps the light forever. Nothing loses it forever. Elsewhere in the monastery, the chanting continues like a river flowing beneath unseen ground. Its deeper tones drift through stone corridors, softened by thick masonry that has listened to these same rhythms through generations of changing voices. The walls themselves seem to have learned the melodies, answering not with sound, but with a gentle stillness that welcomes every returning note. Stone remembers differently than paper. Paper preserves words. Stone preserves echoes. Somewhere along an outer passage, a pilgrim reaches toward a prayer wheel resting upon its iron axle. A simple touch begins its slow clockwise journey. Copper glides smoothly beneath weathered fingers, polished by countless travelers who arrived from distant valleys carrying hopes too personal for speech. Within the hollow cylinder, tightly rolled pages turn together. Hundreds of thousands of sacred syllables remain hidden from sight. The eye sees only polished metal. The hands feel only its cool surface. Yet inside, silent words travel in perfect circles. The wheel answers with a soft whirring sound, almost like wind slipping through dry grass. Beneath that gentle murmur comes another quieter voice still. The faint friction of paper resting against metal as the tightly wound scrolls continue their patient revolution. Nothing rushes. The motion itself becomes enough. Another wheel begins turning farther along the wall, then another. Each completes its circle without asking where the first began. Perhaps mountains understand circles better than straight lines. Snow returns. Spring returns. The valley winds climb each afternoon before surrendering once more to descending currents after sunset. Light enters the same windows from slightly different angles with each passing season, while shadows quietly lengthen and shorten across familiar stones. Everything changes. Everything returns. The monastery asks for no contradiction between these truths. Outside, the morning has climbed higher. The courtyards now hold the sun with quiet generosity. Their stone paving absorbs warmth that will slowly be offered back after evening arrives, just as the thick walls shelter coolness through the brighter hours before yielding it to the approaching night. Architecture here does not stand apart from weather. It breathes with it. The same clay that binds the walls gently accepts the changing temperatures carried by mountain days. Under summer warmth it expands almost imperceptibly. During bitter winter nights it tightens, once more beneath the stars. Timber hidden within the masonry answers differently, flexing with patient resilience, while keeping the great weight of stone united through years when the earth itself occasionally trembles beneath unseen depths. Nothing argues with the mountain. Everything learns its rhythm. Far beyond the monastery, high passes remain open beneath the clear sky. Merchants still travel winding paths, where every distant ridge conceals another beyond it. Their footsteps bring news from lands unseen, though within these walls, urgency rarely crosses the threshold. The world may move swiftly elsewhere. Here even passing travelers seem to borrow the mountain's slower heartbeat before continuing their journey. By the time the sun reaches its highest place above the gorge, the brilliant light has deepened every shadow beneath carved balconies and timber eaves. hard-edged sunlight rests upon whitewashed walls, while cool pockets of shade preserve the morning's freshness. The monastery wears both warmth and cold together, as naturally as stone wears lichen, as naturally as rivers wear valleys. And somewhere beyond the bright courtyards, where mountain air slips gently through narrow passages before disappearing into older halls, another quiet practice has already begun, one so subtle that only the breath itself seems to know its first movement. The breath arrives almost unnoticed. It enters with the cool clarity of the mountain morning, lingers for a quiet moment within the body, then leaves again without asking for gratitude. At this elevation, where the air carries only a portion of the oxygen known to the valleys below, every inhalation possesses a gentle honesty. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is hurried. The mountain quietly reminds every living being that each breath is precious simply because it cannot be held forever. Within one of the secluded rooms, the stillness deepens. There are no elaborate gestures, no movement meant to attract another's attention, only the slow companionship between awareness and breathing. Outside these walls, winds follow familiar paths through the gorge, climbing the slopes beneath the warmth of the afternoon before surrendering themselves to gravity after sunset. Within the body, another current is observed with equal patience, rising, settling, returning again. The monks have watched these invisible journeys for generations. The mountain has watched even longer. Some sit upon simple woven cushions, wrapped in thick robes whose coarse fibers still hold the faint fragrance of lanolin from the wool of yak and sheep. The fabric is heavy beneath resting hands, dense enough to resist the sharp mountain wind, yet softened by years of quiet use. Its surface speaks not of luxury but of endurance, shaped by cold mornings, long winters, and countless seasons beneath the same high sky. Warmth is never taken for granted here. It is gathered, protected, shared. A calm breath settles lower. Another follows. The rhythm becomes so gentle that breathing itself begins to resemble the slow drifting of clouds beyond the monastery walls. No effort seeks to lengthen the moment. It simply unfolds according to its own nature. Among those who have devoted many years to this discipline, the body sometimes answers in remarkable ways. Through careful visualization and refined control of the breath, practitioners of the ancient inner heat practice gradually awaken warmth from within rather than searching for it outside themselves. Fingers that would ordinarily surrender to the bitter mountain cold remain unexpectedly alive with gentle heat, while snow continues to rest quietly beyond the walls. The warmth is invisible, yet it is real enough to be felt. Perhaps the mountain understands this better than anyone. After all, beneath frozen ground, unseen springs continue their patient journeys through stone long before emerging into daylight. Silence, too, possesses hidden currents. No eye can observe them directly, yet anyone who lingers long enough begins to sense their quiet presence. Elsewhere, the afternoon light has begun its slow migration across the monastery. Shadows beneath wooden balconies shorten almost imperceptibly before beginning their gradual return toward evening. Whitewashed walls reflect the brilliant Himalayan sun with a soft radiance that never feels harsh inside the sheltered courtyards. The mountain shapes every ray. Light falls where stone allows. Even brightness accepts boundaries. A pair of ravens circles above the gorge. Their wings scarcely move as rising currents carry them higher into the immense blue. From below, they appear almost suspended between earth and sky, tracing slow circles that mirror the turning prayer wheels along the monastery paths. The same shape appears again, not as repetition, as rhythm. The birds circle, the wheels circle, the seasons circle, morning chants yield to afternoon silence before returning once more with another dawn. Nothing remains unchanged. Nothing abandons its place entirely. Perhaps this is why thoughts of impermanence do not bring sorrow within these walls. A weathered stone may loosen from a wall one winter. Another patient hand returns it to its place in spring. A timber darkens with age. Its strength quietly continues. Snow covers the footpaths for months before streams reveal them once more beneath the thaw. Change is not interruption. It is simply another form of continuity. Beyond the monastery, the passes remain open for now. Caravans continue crossing high valleys while the weather still permits their journeys. The footsteps of traders mingle with those of pilgrims, though each carries something different through the mountains. One transports wool, salt, or precious goods gathered across distant lands. Another carries questions that cannot be weighed. The monastery receives both with equal stillness. Its walls ask neither traveler to explain why they have come, only to arrive. Near one of the outer paths, a row of larger prayer wheels catches the gentle touch of passing hands. Their polished surfaces reflect fragments of sky between engraved patterns worn smooth by centuries of devotion. Each wheel turns only in the direction taught by those who came before, completing its quiet circle with the certainty of flowing water following the shape of its riverbed. The faint whirring blends with the afternoon breeze. Metal, paper, wind. Three different voices speaking one peaceful language. Not far away, folded bundles of dried juniper rest beneath shelter, waiting for colder days when the fragrance of their smoke will once again fill halls closed against winter winds. Nearby, carefully stored fuel gathered during the warmer months remains untouched. Cakes of dried yak and sheep dung, along with hardy alpine shrubs collected under generous summer skies, wait with remarkable patience. They do not belong to today. They belong to the snow that has not yet fallen. There is wisdom in preparing for a season while standing beneath another. The mountain practices this every day. Its highest ridges preserve winter, even while valleys briefly celebrate summer. Its stone remembers ancient seas while supporting present footsteps. Its silence welcomes both arrival and departure without choosing between them. As afternoon begins its quiet descent toward evening, the air changes almost too subtly to notice at first. Warm currents that climbed through the gorge begin losing their strength. Somewhere high above, colder air has already started its long journey downward, unseen but inevitable. The monastery does not wait until the wind arrives. It already belongs to its rhythm. Doors close gently. Robes gather a little more closely against the cooling air. The warmth stored within stone courtyards slowly prepares to return what it borrowed from the sun. And before the first hints of twilight settle upon the surrounding peaks, somewhere within the hidden halls, hands begin preparing a simple meal whose comfort has sustained these mountains through generations of long winters and quiet contemplation. The fragrance appears before the meal itself. It drifts quietly through stone passageways, carried by air that has begun to cool with the shortening day. The scent is rich without being heavy, familiar without demanding attention. Somewhere behind thick walls, water has been simmering for hours, patiently drawing its strength from compressed tea leaves that have traveled across high mountain roads, much as pilgrims once did. Slowly, enduring every turn the landscape required, a tall wooden churn rests upon the floor. Its smooth surface bears the gentle polish of many hands, each season leaving an almost invisible memory upon the grain. Within its hollow form, dark tea meets generous portions of rendered yak butter and salt before the long wooden plunger begins its steady movement. Up, down, again. No hurried rhythm guides the motion, only the quiet certainty that warmth, like many precious things, arrives through patience. As the butter slowly joins the tea, the liquid changes almost imperceptibly, becoming softer in color and richer in body. Outside these walls, the mountain air continues surrendering its warmth to the approaching evening. Inside, another kind of warmth is carefully prepared, not merely to comfort the body, but to accompany life where winter often lingers longer than memory wishes. Wooden bowls are filled without ceremony. Steam rises in delicate threads. For a brief moment it catches the fading light, entering through a narrow window before disappearing into the coolness above. Each bowl becomes a small source of warmth held between quiet hands. The first sip is never rushed. Salt touches the tongue before the richness of butter gently follows. The drink carries the strength of distant grazing lands, alpine grasses transformed by yak into nourishment that can withstand long seasons beneath snow. It settles deeply, asking for nothing more than another slow breath. Nearby rests a simple wooden container holding roasted barley flour. A hand gathers a measured portion. Another spoonful of tea follows. Gradually, careful fingers blend them into a dense, humble dough. No elaborate meal announces the afternoon. Only nourishment shaped by necessity and accepted with gratitude. The mountain has always understood simplicity. It asks little, yet it gives enough. Around these quiet tables, conversation remains sparse. Not because words are unwelcome, but because silence has become another trusted companion. The gentle sound of wooden bowls meeting woven cloth carries farther than spoken voices. A robe brushes softly against stone. Somewhere beyond the room, a prayer wheel continues turning, its patient murmur drifting through the cooling air like a stream hidden beneath snow. Even ordinary sounds seem content with modesty. Outside, sunlight has begun withdrawing from the highest walls. The bright white surfaces that glowed beneath the afternoon now soften into warmer shades, while the surrounding cliffs gather longer shadows that slowly descend toward the valley below. Every ridge participates in the evening with remarkable calm, as though the mountains have rehearsed this quiet transition for countless ages. Perhaps they have. The gorge changes color without changing itself. Stone remains stone. Only the light remembers to move. Along the terraces, the day's stored warmth begins its gentle return. Courtyard stones, which quietly welcomed the generous sun from morning until late afternoon, now release that borrowed heat into the cooling air. Thick masonry answers more slowly still, offering its hidden warmth through the evening hours before surrendering completely to the mountain night. Architecture here does not resist time. It participates in it. Every wall inhales daylight. Every evening exhales it again. A visitor might never notice such patient exchanges. Those who remain through many seasons come to trust them as faithfully as sunrise itself. Beyond the monastery, The pathways leading toward distant passes still carry scattered footsteps, though fewer now than before. As autumn slowly approaches, travelers begin measuring journeys against the certainty of snow. There comes a season when high roads quietly disappear beneath white silence, and valleys that welcome distant voices through summer gradually surrender them to winter. The mountains do not close their gates in anger, they simply become themselves. Long before the first heavy snowfall arrives, quiet preparations begin throughout the monastery. Bundles of dried shrubs remain carefully protected beneath shelter. Fuel gathered beneath warm skies waits without impatience. Nothing stored here speaks of fear, only foresight. The same hands that trimmed lamp wicks this morning have also gathered what tomorrow may require. Perhaps wisdom often resembles this, not predicting the future, simply greeting it before it arrives. In another room, strips of air, dried meat rest securely above the cool stone floor. Months earlier, cold winds and dry mountain air had preserved them naturally, asking little beyond time itself. Nearby, sacks of roasted barley wait undisturbed. Their quiet presence offers reassurance more profound than abundance. The coming winter has already been welcomed. No announcement marks its invitation, only careful preparation. Outside, the first evening wind begins descending from higher slopes. It carries the unmistakable freshness of snowfields hidden beyond distant ridges. As the colder current slips gently into the gorge, prayer flags tied high upon wooden poles answer with delicate movements scarcely stronger than breathing. Their faded colors have endured countless summers of brilliant ultraviolet light, yet they continue dancing with the same quiet grace beneath every changing sky. The fabric has weathered, its purpose has not. Far above, the deep blue of afternoon slowly yields to gentler shades. The horizon softens. The sharp edges of distant peaks begin dissolving into peaceful silhouettes. One by one, the first stars prepare to reclaim the sky they surrendered only hours before. Within the monastery, the lamps seem brighter now, not because their flames have grown, because darkness has returned to meet them. There is comfort in such meetings. The smallest light often reveals itself most clearly when evening arrives without resistance. And as the last traces of sunlight quietly withdraw from the hidden courtyards, voices once again begin gathering within the ancient halls, where another cycle of chanting rises with the approaching night, as naturally as the stars finding their places above the silent Himalayas. Night settles over the gorge with remarkable gentleness, as though the mountains themselves have lowered a great cloak across stone, timber, and snow. The brilliance that only hours ago carved every ridge into sharp relief now yields to softer contours, where outlines become suggestions and distance quietly surrenders to darkness. The monastery changes with the light, yet it never seems to become another place. It simply reveals another face of the same enduring home. From within the assembly hall, the gathered voices return with an unhurried steadiness. Their tones are deep enough to seem rooted beneath the floor itself, rising through timber columns before drifting toward the ceiling, where centuries of rising incense have darkened the beams to the color of old earth after rain. Each voice remains impossible to separate from the others. Individual breath disappears into shared breath. The chant becomes less like many people speaking together and more like the mountain remembering something ancient through human lungs. Outside, The evening wind glides quietly along the cliff walls. Earlier, it climbed from the valley under the warmth of the afternoon sun. Now gravity gently guides colder air downward through the narrow gorge. It brushes across the monastery roofs, slips between carved balconies, and finds every open corner before continuing toward the river below. The buildings never struggle against it. Their walls have listened to these winds through generations beyond counting. Stone remembers direction. Timber remembers movement. The clay between them accepts each season without complaint. Within the hall, a pair of heavy cymbals meets with restrained grace. Their broad metallic shimmer does not interrupt the chanting. It simply opens another layer within it, like moonlight briefly touching the surface of flowing water before drifting away. A drum follows. Its measured pulse travels through the thick masonry more than through the air. One almost feels the sound before hearing it, as though the floor itself were quietly participating in the rhythm. Beyond the doorway, butter lamps continue their patient work. Their flames bend gently whenever a passing current slips through the corridor, then rise upright once more. They seem almost alive, not because they resist the wind, but because they recover from it with quiet confidence. There is something comforting in such small resilience. A flame need not be large to illuminate darkness, nor must a life be loud to leave warmth behind. Near one of the interior walls, folded robes rest where they were carefully placed after the day's duties. Their coarse wool still carries the mountain itself within its fibers. The faint scent of lanolin remains, mingling with traces of juniper smoke until the distinction between cloth and landscape begins to disappear. Even garments remember where they belong. The monastery holds more than people. It gathers seasons. The woven fabric remembers winter winds. The stone remembers summer heat. The timber remembers forests that once reached toward open skies before finding another purpose within these halls. Nothing has truly been lost, only transformed. Far outside the monastery, the stars now emerge without hesitation. At this altitude, where the atmosphere is thinner and the air astonishingly dry, the heavens appear almost impossibly near. Countless points of light scatter across the darkness with extraordinary clarity. Between them stretches a silence so vast that even the mountains seem content simply to gaze upward. No wall encloses the sky. No roof shelters it. Yet the same stars quietly visit every courtyard, every roof, every hidden path leading toward distant passes. Perhaps travelers crossing these mountains by night once looked upward and found comfort in seeing that those within the monastery rested beneath the very same constellations. Distance becomes gentler when the heavens are shared. Somewhere near the outer path, a final prayer wheel completes another slow revolution before coming almost imperceptibly to rest. It does not stop abruptly. Momentum fades with remarkable grace until movement becomes stillness so gradually that the eye cannot identify the precise moment of change. Time often behaves the same way. No season arrives all at once. No child notices the exact day adulthood begins. Even mountains rise so slowly that only centuries recognize their movement. Perhaps stillness itself is only motion that has become too patient for ordinary sight. Within a quiet chamber, one monk remains seated long after the communal chanting has softened into silence. His breathing has become almost indistinguishable from the surrounding night. Each inhalation enters, with the cool freshness carried from snowfields beyond the unseen ridges. Each exhalation departs a little warmer, returning borrowed life to the waiting darkness. Breath enters, breath leaves. Nothing asks it to stay, nothing prevents its return. There is remarkable kindness in such trust. The body releases each breath without fear, because another quietly follows. The mountain releases each winter, because spring eventually returns. The river releases every drop, because another has already begun its journey from distant glaciers. Nothing clings. Everything continues. Near the monastery kitchens, the warmth of the cooking fire has nearly faded. The carefully rationed fuel has served its purpose for another evening before surrendering itself to soft grey ash. Tomorrow, another small portion will be offered, never more than necessary. The stores gathered beneath generous summer skies are measured with quiet wisdom. Long months of snow may yet come, sealing high passes beneath white silence until distant valleys become memories rather than destinations. Isolation is not an unexpected visitor here, it is an old companion. The monastery has learned not to fear its arrival. Instead, it prepares a place for it just as one prepares a cushion for a familiar guest. Perhaps solitude changes its character when it is welcomed rather than resisted. The halls never seem empty during winter. They become more attentive. The sounds grow fewer. The listening grows deeper. Outside, frost begins forming along shaded stones where the day's remaining warmth has finally yielded to the clear Himalayan night. The air grows sharper with each passing hour, yet the walls continue releasing the last quiet gifts gathered beneath the afternoon sun. Even after darkness has claimed the valley, yesterday's light still lingers inside the stone. Perhaps memories remain within people in much the same way, not as bright moments endlessly preserved, but as gentle warmth quietly carried forward into another evening. Above the hidden monastery, the stars continue their silent passage from east to west. They neither hurry nor pause. Their patient movement belongs to a rhythm older than kingdoms, older than trade routes, older than every wall resting against these mountains. The monastery sleeps beneath them without possession. The mountains rise beneath them without pride, and somewhere in the vast stillness between earth and sky, the quiet hours continue unfolding, carrying the unseen promise that before long, another gentle dawn will once again find its way into the hidden gorge. Long before the first hint of morning touches the eastern ridges, the night reaches its deepest calm. The valley seems suspended outside the passage of ordinary hours, wrapped in a silence so complete that even the faint murmur of the Indus, hidden beyond the folds of the mountains, feels like a memory carried through sleep rather than a sound crossing the earth. The air has grown colder. Every stone has surrendered the warmth it borrowed from yesterday's sun. The walls stand quietly beneath the weight of darkness, their great thickness preserving only the smallest traces of gentleness within the rooms they shelter. Outside, frost settles along roof edges and wooden beams with patient certainty, each crystal gathering where the clear Himalayan sky has allowed the day's remaining warmth to drift away into the vastness above. Yet inside, life continues in softer rhythms. Not every lamp has gone dark. A handful still burns before sacred images, their delicate flames reflecting from polished brass bowls like tiny stars resting upon the earth. Their light never reaches the far corners of the chambers. Instead, it remains close to the wick that gives it birth, content to illuminate only what lies nearby. Perhaps wisdom often resembles such light. It need not reach everywhere. It only needs to remain faithful to where it is. The monastery breathes almost imperceptibly. Timber contracts ever so slightly beneath the night's colder air. Clay between the stones grows firmer as temperatures fall, while the hidden beams woven through the masonry continue their quiet labor, binding every wall together without ever asking to be seen. Their strength is silent, so is their purpose. Far below the surface of awareness, they continue holding one stone beside another, just as generations have quietly held this place together through careful attention rather than grand gestures. Beyond the walls, the mountain offers another lesson in patience. Snow remains upon the highest slopes, untouched by footsteps. The wind moves across those distant ridges without leaving visible traces. It cannot be kept. It cannot be gathered. Yet every prayer flag tied to weathered poles knows precisely when it has arrived. The cloth stirs, then rests, then stirs again. Nothing in the movement asks to be remembered. Its beauty exists completely within the moment itself. High above, the stars continue their slow procession. Their reflections do not appear upon broad lakes here, for these mountains keep their waters moving. Instead, the starlight settles gently upon snowfields and pale stone, giving the quiet landscape a faint silver softness that belongs only to the deepest hours before dawn. Even darkness possesses many colors. Some are seen only by those willing to wait. Within a sheltered room, long scripture leaves remain carefully stacked between smooth wooden boards. They ask for no reader during these silent hours. The words they carry have already traveled through countless voices, and they seem perfectly content to rest until morning calls them gently back into sound. Paper knows how to wait. Stone knows how to wait. Perhaps this is why they live so peacefully together. Elsewhere, beside a wall where prayer wheels now stand motionless, the faint scent of junipers still lingers from the previous evening's offering. Fragrance moves differently from sound. A chant disappears the moment it has been sung. Smoke remains for a while longer, settling into woven wool, old timber, and cool stone before quietly dissolving into the mountain air. Some memories leave no image, only a feeling. The monastery seems to understand both. A visitor might one day forget the shape of a particular doorway or the pattern carved into a wooden column. Yet years later, they may suddenly remember how the air felt inside these halls, dry and cool, carrying the faint warmth of butter lamps and the quiet perfume of mountain herbs. There are places that remain within the body long after they leave the mind. As the hours pass, the sky begins changing in a way almost impossible to witness directly. No line separates night from morning. Instead, darkness slowly grows transparent, revealing the outlines of peaks that had patiently waited beyond sight all along. Nothing new has arrived. Only hidden things have become visible. The first pale light brushes the highest summits. For a brief time, the valleys remain asleep beneath shadow, while distant ridges awaken one after another, like islands emerging from a tranquil sea of darkness. The monastery still rests within the embrace of the gorge, untouched by the sun's earliest greeting. Its morning always begins with waiting. The mountains receive light first. Only afterward does it descend. A single raven calls somewhere beyond the cliffs. The sound travels cleanly through the cold air before fading into the immense stillness. There is no answer. None is needed. The mountain has heard. Within the monastery, another day prepares itself quietly. Hands reach once more toward the familiar tasks that ask for no applause. Wicks will be trimmed, butter replenished. Prayer wheels will turn again beneath weathered palms. Stone courtyards will gather the warmth of another clear Himalayan day before offering it back to evening. Nothing repeats. Everything returns. Each dawn resembles the one before it, yet no sunlight falls upon the walls in precisely the same way. Winds choose slightly different paths through the gorge. Shadows settle beneath balconies with delicate variations too subtle for hurried eyes to notice. The monastery has never demanded novelty. It finds endless richness within gentle differences. Perhaps this is why the passing years leave so little anxiety here. Time is not treated as something escaping. It is welcomed as another traveler quietly arriving through the mountain pass. Every season carries its own gift. Summer offers generous light. Winter offers attentive silence. Autumn teaches preparation. Spring reminds stone and water to begin their conversation once more. No season attempts to become another. None remains forever. As the first rays finally approach the hidden courtyards, the monastery waits without impatience, exactly as it has through uncounted mornings. The cliffs surrounding the gorge slowly loosen their hold upon the shadows, allowing the coming day to enter with remarkable tenderness. And somewhere just beyond the still, dark passageways, where the first warmth of dawn is about to touch ancient stone once again, the deep voice of a copper horn quietly prepares to greet another beginning. The note emerges so gently that it seems to awaken the morning without disturbing it. It rises from within the hidden buildings and drifts into the gorge where the pale light has only begun to reveal the contours of stone. The sound is deep, unhurried, and patient, lingering against the cliffs before returning as a softened echo, as though the mountain wished to listen once before allowing the voice to continue its journey. The valley does not answer with noise, it answers with space. Every ridge gives the sound room to travel. Every fold of the landscape receives it without judgment. The horn's low breath slowly dissolves into the cool air, leaving behind a silence that feels somehow fuller than before. In its wake, another morning begins not with urgency, but with recognition. The monastery has awakened, and so too has the quiet rhythm that has shaped these hidden walls through generations. Wooden doors open once more. Their hinges speak softly after the cold night, offering only the faintest murmur against the stillness. The first footsteps cross stone worn smooth by years beyond counting. No path has been forced into existence here. It has appeared through repetition so gentle that the rock itself accepted the invitation. A path is often nothing more than patience made visible. The eastern sky grows brighter. Its pale silver gradually welcomes delicate shades of blue, while the highest snowfields briefly hold the first golden light before releasing it farther down the slopes. The gorge receives the morning little by little, never all at once. Shadows withdraw with remarkable grace, as though they understand they will return when evening quietly asks for them again. Nothing argues with the turning of the day. Within the courtyards, yesterday's frost begins surrendering to the warmth gathering upon the stone. Tiny droplets appear where ice had rested only moments before. They glisten briefly in the new light, reflecting an entire sky inside each fragile surface before slipping silently into the earth. The mountain wastes nothing. Even melting becomes another form of arrival. Near the entrance to the assembly hall, one monk pauses before touching the heavy timber door. The wood is cool beneath his hand, carrying traces of the night's cold despite the approaching sun. Beneath its weathered surface lies the memory of forests that once reached upward through distant valleys, long before becoming shelter for quiet lives lived among stone and wind. The tree has not disappeared. It has learned another way to stand. Inside, the hall remains wrapped in gentle dimness. Butter lamps continue their patient vigil, their flames now sharing the room with thin beams of morning light that enter through high openings. Dust, invisible only moments before, now drifts quietly through those narrow shafts of brightness, rising and falling with currents too subtle for the eye to fully understand. Even the air seems to meditate. Nothing inside the hall asks for attention. Every object simply fulfills its place. The carved columns continue bearing the weight above without complaint. Their painted surfaces have softened beneath countless seasons, yet they remain graceful, as though time itself had become another artisan, adding gentle touches no human hand could imitate. The cushions are arranged once again. The scripture leaves rest upon low supports, waiting for familiar hands. Their long pages unfold with the same careful movements that have accompanied dawn for generations. The edges have grown smoother where countless fingers have lifted them. The ink remains quiet, requiring neither ornament nor display. Words endure best when they are never hurried. The first chant does not begin with a single commanding voice. Instead, it gathers almost invisibly. One breath, then another, a third joins them. Soon the hall becomes filled with a shared resonance that seems less like singing than breathing made audible. Deep tones settle into the timber, while delicate harmonics rise gently above them, disappearing into spaces where darkness still lingers between the beams. The sound never overwhelms the room. It belongs to it. Outside, the wind has not yet found its daytime strength. The valley still rests within the calm that often lingers after sunrise, before the sun has warmed the slopes enough to draw the air upward. Prayer flags barely move. Their faded threads hang almost motionless against the brilliant sky, carrying colors softened by years of powerful Himalayan light. The sun has gently rewritten them, not erased them. Far below, unseen from the monastery itself, the river continues its patient course through the broader valley. It has traveled through stone older than memory, carrying water that yesterday belonged to distant snowfields and tomorrow will belong to lands beyond these mountains. The river never asks where it began. The mountain never asks where it ends. Perhaps both understand that every journey becomes another's beginning. Along one of the outer walls, a visitor pauses before a row of prayer wheels. The polished copper is cool beneath waiting fingers. With the lightest touch, the nearest cylinder begins turning clockwise. Its motion is neither hurried nor hesitant. It simply follows the path it was made to follow. Inside, tightly rolled scrolls revolve unseen. Outside, sunlight slowly travels across engraved metal. Hidden words, visible light, both continue without asking to be witnessed. Nearby, the scent of juniper rises once more into the clear morning air. The smoke drifts upward before the growing light, thinning until it becomes almost indistinguishable from the atmosphere surrounding it. Fragrance leaves no shadow upon the ground, yet it quietly changes every place it passes. The same may be true of kindness. No stone records it, no wall preserves its shape. Still, every life touched by it becomes slightly different. The monastery has never separated such small gestures from larger ones. Trimming a wick, turning a wheel, preparing tea, sweeping a courtyard, listening to another breath, each belongs to the same unbroken current flowing through these hidden halls. Outside, sunlight now reaches the upper balconies. Their carved wooden railings cast delicate patterns across whitewashed walls before the shifting hours gently redraw them. The courtyards begin gathering warmth once more, storing the day's quiet generosity within stone that will patiently return it after sunset. The exchange has happened so many times that neither sun nor wall seems aware of performing it. Perhaps the deepest acts of care become invisible through familiarity. Above the monastery, the immense Himalayan sky stretches clear beyond measure, while beyond the surrounding ridges, unseen roads continue waiting for merchants, pilgrims, wandering birds, and changing seasons alike. None arrive alone, each carries time with them, and somewhere beyond the brightening courtyards, where footsteps once again weave softly through corridors of stone and timber, another ordinary moment begins. So quiet that it might easily be overlooked, yet gentle enough to sustain an entire lifetime. Life within these walls rarely announces itself through remarkable events. Instead, it reveals its quiet beauty through moments so ordinary that they might escape the attention of anyone who has not yet learned to slow their gaze. The morning grows brighter. Light now reaches the lower courtyards where the night's coolness has only recently withdrawn from the stone. The air remains crisp despite the strengthening sun. At this altitude, warmth and cold often share the same hour without contradiction. One side of a wall welcomes gentle sunlight, while the other still remembers frost. The monastery accepts both. Its walls have never asked the mountain to choose. Along the outer terraces, the stone beneath each footstep feels slightly different from one place to the next. Where sunlight has lingered, it carries a quiet warmth through the soles of worn boots. Only a few paces away, shaded corners still hold the night's lingering chill. Walking here becomes a conversation with temperature itself, each turn through the passageways offering another subtle reply from the mountain. Perhaps every landscape speaks. Some simply choose quieter languages. A monk pauses beneath the carved timber of a balcony, overlooking the central courtyard. His hand briefly rests upon the wooden railing, polished smooth, where countless generations have done the same. The grain beneath his fingertips still bears the gentle memory of the living tree from which it came. Those seasons of wind, sun, and prayer have given it another life entirely. Transformation rarely asks permission. It simply continues. Beyond the railing, sunlight gradually fills the open space below. The paving stones begin storing another day's warmth, quietly preparing a gift they will not offer until many hours later, when evening returns and colder air once again slips down through the gorge. There is generosity hidden inside stone. It receives without keeping. It gives without asking to be noticed. Nearby, a quiet breeze finally begins climbing from the valley floor. The mountain slopes have warmed enough beneath the clear Himalayan sky to awaken the familiar upward currents that visit each afternoon. The wind enters the monastery almost politely, touching robes, stirring incense smoke into delicate ribbons, and passing beneath timber eaves before continuing toward higher ridges. Nothing here attempts to capture it. Freedom often leaves more gently than possession. The smoke from fresh juniper rises differently now than it did before sunrise. Earlier, the cold air held it close to the ground, allowing its fragrance to linger beneath the beams. As the day matures, warmer currents lift the pale strands upward, carrying their resinous scent beyond rooftops and into the immense blue above. Some offerings disappear by becoming part of the sky. The monastery seems content with this. Within the assembly hall, scripture continues unfolding one page at a time. Long paper leaves pass carefully from hand to hand, their edges softened through years of respectful use. No hurried turning disturbs their rhythm. Each page arrives only after the previous one has fully offered what it carried. There is no desire to reach the end, only willingness to remain present where the words already are. The voices that filled the hall earlier have become quieter now, leaving generous spaces between sounds. Occasionally a deep chant returns, supported by another measured pulse from the great drum whose low resonance settles into the stone beneath every listener. Its rhythm never commands, it accompanies, like a heart whose greatest gift is consistency. Outside, a pair of ravens has returned to the gorge. They drift upon invisible currents with such ease that one might imagine the mountain itself carrying them gently through the morning. Their shadows move silently across pale cliffs before dissolving against brighter rock where sunlight has become too brilliant to hold them. Even shadows have journeys. Far below, unseen pathways continue welcoming travelers, crossing the vast network of valleys that weave through these mountains. Some carry woven cloth. Others lead animals burdened with goods gathered from distant lands. Salt, wool, tea. Quiet necessities whose value grows greater with every difficult pass successfully crossed. The monastery watches none of them directly, yet the mountain knows they are there. Hidden roots have always connected places that appeared alone. So it is with people. A hand reaches once more toward a prayer wheel. This time the gesture is slower than before. The fingertips remain upon the cool metal just long enough to feel its gentle resistance before the cylinder begins its familiar turning. Inside, the tightly rolled scrolls continue revolving in darkness, never demanding to be opened. Some truths serve best without display. Nearby, another monk sweeps a section of the courtyard using a simple handmade broom. Dust rises briefly into the sunlight before settling once more upon the earth from which it came. No trace of the sweeping remains except the quiet order left behind. Perhaps care often leaves no visible signature, only peace. The clear mountain sky grows deeper as the sun climbs higher. Its extraordinary blue owes itself not to abundance, but to absence. The thinner atmosphere above these peaks allows light to pass with remarkable purity, leaving the heavens vast beyond ordinary imagining. Against such openness, every white wall appears brighter, every carved beam darker, every prayer flag more gently weathered by years of brilliant ultraviolet light. The colors fade. The devotion does not. As midday approaches, warmth gathers more confidently within sheltered corners of the monastery. Thick robes loosen slightly. Hands linger a little longer outside their sleeves. Even the stone seems more welcoming beneath the strengthening sun. Yet no one forgets how swiftly these mountains change. before many hours have passed, evening will begin its quiet descent once more. The monastery lives comfortably with such certainty. Preparation has become another expression of trust. Nothing lasts, therefore everything deserves attention. A bowl is carefully returned to its place. A lamp receives fresh butter though its flame still burns. A wooden beam is inspected after another season of snow has passed. A roof of compacted clay will, in its proper time, be pressed firm again after the thaw, preserving the patient shelter it offers against meltwater and winter storms alike. Care arrives before necessity. That is how these walls have endured, not through resistance alone, through countless unnoticed acts repeated with gentle hands. The mountain never asks whether such work is important. It simply reveals the answer each passing year. And as the bright Himalayan sun continues its slow climb above the hidden monastery, the day unfolds with the same quiet confidence that has always belonged to this secluded world, where every ordinary task becomes another small thread woven into the enduring fabric of time. That quiet fabric is never woven all at once. It grows one careful thread at a time, so gradually that no eye could ever point to the precise moment when a lifetime becomes a tradition, or when a simple habit begins carrying the weight of centuries. Above the monastery, the sun has now climbed high enough for the courtyards to glow with a steady warmth. The whitewashed walls reflect the brilliant light with such clarity that every shadow beneath the timber balconies appears deeper by comparison. The mountain air remains astonishingly transparent. Distances seem deceptively close, while every ridge beyond the gorge stands with remarkable precision beneath the endless blue. Yet appearances are gentle deceivers. A mountain that seems within an afternoon's walk may require many hours of patient climbing. A voice carried by the wind may belong to someone far beyond the next ridge. The Himalayas quietly teach humility simply by allowing distance to reveal itself slowly. From one of the upper terraces, the monastery appears almost inseparable from the cliffs supporting it. The foundations do not merely rest upon the mountain. They become part of it. Ancient builders accepted the shape already offered by the bedrock, allowing each level to rise naturally with the slope. Instead of asking the earth to become something else, stone welcomed stone. The mountain offered its own strength. There is remarkable trust in building this way. Rather than forcing straight lines across uneven ground, the walls gently follow the landscape's patient guidance. Every terrace settles slightly above the last, each one leaning quietly into the hillside, where the immense body of the mountain helps steady the buildings against gravity's endless invitation downhill. The monastery stands not because it ignores the mountain. It stands because it listens. Inside one of the passageways, a coolness remains untouched by the afternoon warmth gathering outside. Thick masonry keeps the deeper corridors sheltered from sudden change. The transition is almost immediate. One step carries sunlight upon the shoulders. The next welcomes a calm breath of cool stone and quiet shadow. The body notices before the mind does. Temperature becomes another doorway. Along these interior walls, the rough texture of local stone still bears the memory of the surrounding slopes from which it was gathered. Some pieces reveal pale veins running through darker surfaces. Others hold tiny flecks that catch a wandering beam of light before disappearing once more into the wall as the sun slowly continues its journey. No two stones are identical. Together they become one shelter. Perhaps communities grow in much the same way, not through sameness, through belonging. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, gentle laughter briefly appears before fading again into the afternoon. It is soft, almost hidden by the breeze, and disappears as naturally as birdsong. Even joy here seems comfortable wearing simple clothes. Nothing seeks to become louder than the mountain. A raven settles upon a weathered roof beam. Its dark feathers shine with quiet hints of blue beneath the clear sky. For a few moments it remains perfectly still, watching the valley beyond the hidden gorge. Then, with only a few measured strokes of its wings, it rises once again into the open air where unseen currents carry it effortlessly upward. Flight often begins with letting go. Below, a monk carefully examines part of the roof where spring's thaw has long since passed. The thick clay surface appears smooth, yet experienced eyes know that every season leaves small invitations for water to linger where it should not. Before another winter arrives, the roof will once again be rolled and pressed until it becomes dense enough to welcome snow without surrendering to it. The work is never dramatic. It is simply faithful. The roof remembers every winter. The hands remember every spring. Neither speaks. Both understand. Nearby, heavy wooden beams continue supporting the layers above with quiet confidence. Willow and poplar, once nourished by rivers flowing through lower valleys, now spend their lives holding roofs against snow, wind, and the slow breathing of the earth itself. Hidden within the walls, other timbers bind the masonry together where no visitor ever sees them. Their greatest work happens in silence, when the mountain occasionally trembles deep below the surface. Those unseen bands quietly help the stone remain united, accepting movement rather than resisting it completely. Strength sometimes survives because it knows how to bend. The afternoon breeze grows steadier. Drawn upward through the warming valley, it slips into the monastery carrying scents gathered from distant slopes. Dry earth, warm stone, juniper, the faint sweetness of alpine shrubs clinging to life where soil is shallow and winters are long. Each fragrance arrives without announcement. None remain forever. Still, each quietly changes the air while passing through it. Far beyond the monastery, where winding paths disappear toward distant passes, merchants continue following routes older than memory. Wool moves one way, tea another. Salt finds its own patient journey across mountains where every step has always demanded respect. Perhaps those who travel these roads eventually learn what the monastery already knows. The shortest path is not always the wisest one. The mountain chooses its own pace. Every traveler eventually borrows it. Inside the assembly hall, the deep resonance of chanting has softened into longer intervals of silence. Scripture remains open upon low supports. A hand turns another page with almost imperceptible care. The movement creates only the faint whisper of paper meeting air. That quiet sound lingers for a moment, then disappears. Some things fulfill their purpose by leaving almost nothing behind. Outside, sunlight begins its slow journey toward the western cliffs. Though many bright hours still remain, the shadows beneath balconies have already lengthened ever so slightly. Time moves across the monastery not by clocks, but by light touching stone. Morning gathers. Midday rests. Afternoon slowly releases. No bell announces these transitions. The walls simply receive them. The mountain simply observes them. And perhaps every peaceful life is shaped in much the same way, not by dramatic turning points remembered forever, but by countless ordinary afternoons that quietly become years before anyone realizes how gently time has carried them onward. Those unnoticed hours possess a quiet generosity. They ask for nothing extraordinary, yet they slowly shape everything they touch. By the time the afternoon has begun its gentle descent across the mountains, the monastery has already absorbed another day of light, another cycle of breath, another measure of silence that no record will ever preserve. The western cliffs now cast longer shadows across the upper terraces. Their edges move so slowly that they seem almost motionless, yet every stone feels the difference. Places that welcomed warmth only moments before begin cooling once again. The mountain is already preparing for evening, while the sky still shines with unwavering blue. Nothing here resists the changing light. It simply receives its turn. In one corner of the courtyard, sunlight lingers upon a wall built from countless pieces of local stone. Some surfaces glow with quiet shades of grey, while others reveal hints of gold where tiny minerals awaken beneath the afternoon sun. Together they form no perfect pattern, yet they have remained together through snow, wind, and trembling earth for generations. Perhaps harmony has never required uniformity, only trust. Hidden within those thick walls lie the wooden bands that quietly bind stone to stone. They ask for no admiration, for they disappear completely beneath clay and masonry. Their presence becomes known only when the earth itself begins to move. There are forms of strength that reveal themselves only during uncertainty. The mountain understands this well. Even the tallest peaks were shaped not by a single upheaval, but by pressures patiently carried across unimaginable ages. Within the monastery, endurance follows the same quiet rhythm. A narrow passage opens toward a shaded chamber where the daylight scarcely enters. The temperature falls noticeably after only a few careful steps. Here, thick walls preserve a cool stillness that remains almost unchanged despite the bright afternoon beyond. The air carries another fragrance, not the fresh sharpness of juniper rising from an outdoor offering, but the deeper scent left behind after years of butter lamps have shared their warmth with ancient timber. It is subtle now, woven gently into the wood itself, impossible to separate from the quiet life that has unfolded around it. Some places remember through scent, others remember through light. This monastery remembers through both. Further inside, where only a few lamps soften the darkness, protective shrines remain hidden from ordinary passage. Their walls have gradually darkened beneath generations of smoke, each layer settling so delicately that no single day could ever be blamed for the change. Wrathful faces emerge quietly from the shadows. Their expressions seem fierce only at first glance, remain with them a little longer, and another feeling begins to appear. Not anger, vigilance, like cliffs standing watch through every season without ever leaving their place. Protection is not always gentle in appearance. Sometimes it simply refuses to sleep. The lamps flicker softly before these ancient images. Their small flames bend whenever unseen currents drift through the chamber, sending quiet reflections across ritual vessels resting upon the altar. Brass glows briefly, then settles, like sunlight moving across a river. Elsewhere in the monastery, hands prepare the afternoon tea. Water has traveled a long way before arriving here. Snow became meltwater. Meltwater found streams. Streams joined rivers. Rivers offered themselves to careful hands. Brick tea, carried across distant passes by merchants and animals whose names have long been forgotten, now meets that water within a simple vessel. Nothing arrives alone. Every cup contains many journeys. Butter is added. Salt follows. The tea is churned patiently until its surface grows smooth and rich. Warmth rises with quiet determination into the cooler mountain air. The scent is unlike anything from lower valleys, earthy, nourishing, carrying the generous weight needed for lives lived where winter often lingers far longer than elsewhere. Comfort changes with altitude. Here warmth itself becomes nourishment. Nearby rests a wooden churn whose smooth interior bears the polished marks of countless mornings and afternoons. Its surface has been shaped not by tools, but by repetition. Perhaps devotion leaves its finest carvings upon ordinary objects. Outside, the valley wind continues climbing the gorge, stronger now beneath the afternoon sun. Prayer flags awaken more fully, their weathered edges fluttering against the immense sky. Time has softened their colors, but strengthened their purpose. They do not seek permanence. They accept becoming part of the wind. Above them, a golden eagle circles almost without movement. Wide wings hold the invisible currents with effortless grace. It neither hurries nor hesitates. The mountain offers support to those who understand how to receive it. Perhaps peace arrives in much the same way. Not through struggle, through balance. In the courtyard below, a monk pauses while carrying a simple wooden bowl. For a brief moment, he turns toward the surrounding cliffs, where sunlight has begun retreating from the highest ledges. Nothing interrupts his stillness. No thought seems to demand attention. The bowl remains quietly balanced within his hands. The mountain remains quietly balanced beneath the sky. The moment passes, yet nothing has been lost. Far beyond the monastery, snow resting upon distant passes, waits patiently for another season. Before many months have passed, those same heights will once again close beneath deep drifts, leaving travelers to postpone their journeys until warmer days return. Long before the first snowfall arrives, provisions will already have found their proper places. Roasted barley, carefully dried meat, stacks of fuel gathered through generous summer months. Nothing is stored out of fear. Everything is prepared out of understanding. The seasons have always kept their promises. The monastery simply listens. As afternoon slowly leans toward evening, the light grows softer despite its lingering brilliance. Shadows stretch farther across the stone, connecting walls that earlier seemed separated by dazzling sunlight. The distinction between brightness and shade becomes gentler with every passing moment. Perhaps opposites spend more time embracing than opposing one another. The monastery seems to know this already. It has watched warmth become cold, snow become water, silence become chant, smoke become sky, morning become memory, and still the hidden gorge remains exactly what it has always been. A quiet refuge where every passing hour leaves no mark of haste. Only another delicate layer within the endless conversation between mountain, stone, wind, and those who have patiently chosen to dwell among them. That conversation has no beginning that anyone can remember, and no ending that anyone expects to witness. It simply continues, spoken in changing light, answered by quiet footsteps, and carried onward by the wind, has always known these valleys better than any map ever could. The afternoon now begins surrendering its brightness with remarkable grace. The fierce clarity of midday softens almost imperceptibly. High above the monastery, the sky remains an immense field of blue, yet its color has deepened, preparing itself for the long descent toward evening. Along the western walls, the sun now arrives from a gentler angle, revealing textures that had remained unnoticed beneath the stronger light of noon. Every hour discovers a different monastery. The same wall now carries tiny shadows where rough stones press slightly beyond their neighbors. Fine lines within the clay mortar become visible for a few precious moments before the light continues onward. Even the grain of old timber glows with a quiet amber warmth, as though every passing season has left another thin layer of memory upon its surface. Nothing asks to be admired. Everything simply waits to be seen. A monk walks slowly across the upper courtyard with a bundle of dried alpine shrubs gathered months before, when the mountains still offered generous summer growth. They have been carefully stored against the long winter ahead, when snow will silence many paths and fuel must be measured with thoughtful hands. Each branch seems weightless. Together they become warmth. The same is often true of small kindnesses. One gesture rarely changes a life. Many gentle gestures quietly become a home. Near one of the outer walls, neatly stacked cakes of dried yak and sheep dung rest beneath simple shelter, protected from unexpected rain and mountain snow. Their appearance is humble, almost easily overlooked against the ancient stone. Yet when winter closes the high passes and temperatures far below freezing, these quiet stores will become glowing embers beneath cooking pots and modest fires. Necessity often hides inside ordinary things. The mountain has always known this. The air has changed again. As the afternoon slowly matures, the valley wind reaches its fullest strength. Drawn upward by the warmth gathered across countless rocky slopes, it flows through the hidden gorge with calm persistence. Prayer flags awaken into graceful motion, not as sudden bursts, but as long, flowing breaths of colored cloth meeting invisible currents. Their faded threads no longer resist the wind. They have learned to dance with it. Far above, sunlight touches the highest ridges one last time before beginning its gradual retreat. Snowfields shimmer briefly with pale gold, their brilliance softened by increasing distance. Every evening these peaks become the first to greet the coming night, even while warmth still lingers below among the monastery walls. Height often receives both light and darkness before anyone else. Perhaps wisdom carries similar responsibilities. Within the assembly hall, the day's rhythm has settled into longer pauses between voices. The scriptures remain open, yet silence itself has become another sacred page. No words appear upon it. Still, everyone understands. Occasionally, the low resonance of a distant drum rises through the building, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. Its measured pulse spreads through thick stone floors before gently dissolving into the timber above. The sound never competes with silence. It accompanies it. Nearby, another butter lamp is quietly tended. The cotton wick has shortened after many hours of faithful burning. A careful hand trims its darkened tip before adding fresh butter to the waiting bowl. The flame leans, recovers, then burns with renewed steadiness. There is no celebration, only quiet continuation. Perhaps endurance is nothing more than countless small renewals unnoticed by the world. The fragrance of warmed butter mingles with ancient timber and the lingering sweetness of juniper. Together they create an atmosphere impossible to carry away in words alone. It belongs completely to this place, shaped by altitude, season, ritual, and time until no single element can be separated from another. The monastery has its own weather indoors, its own seasons of scent. Outside, shadows continue their patient climb up the eastern walls as the sun descends toward unseen horizons. The courtyards release the warmth they have been gathering throughout the day, offering it gently back into the cooling air. The exchange happens without sound. Stone has always understood generosity. A young novice carefully carries folded woolen robes from one chamber to another. The coarse fabric brushes softly against his arms, heavy with the quiet strength of yak and sheep whose leaves have unfolded across the same mountain landscapes surrounding the monastery. The robes hold more than warmth. They carry the memory of open pastures, cold winds, summer grasses, winter endurance. Every thread belongs somewhere beyond the loom. The clear atmosphere allows distant peaks to remain visible until remarkably late in the day. At lower elevations they would already have softened into haze, but here the mountain air preserves astonishing clarity. One can almost believe the horizon has stepped closer, though every traveler knows how patiently these distances unfold beneath steady feet. The Himalayas never hurry anyone. They simply continue being immense. Along a narrow path above the monastery, tiny fragments of loose stone shift beneath the cautious feet of an unseen mountain goat. The brief sound echoes gently through the gorge before disappearing again into the wider silence. The mountain notices every step, even those taken alone. Perhaps especially those. The sun now lowers enough for the western cliffs to shelter much of the monastery from direct light. Whitewashed walls gradually exchange gold for silver, grey. The first cool breath of evening begins slipping quietly down from higher ridges, meeting the last lingering warmth still rising from the courtyards. Warm air climbs. Cold air descends. They meet gently. Neither conquers the other. There is wisdom hidden inside such balance. As the day slowly folds itself toward another evening, the hidden monastery neither welcomes nor resists the approaching night. It simply continues its patient rhythm, trusting that darkness, like light before it, will arrive carrying exactly what it has always brought, a quieter way of seeing the same enduring world. The quieter way reveals itself slowly, as though the mountain prefers that nothing meaningful should ever arrive in haste. As the warmth of the afternoon gently slips from the stone, the monastery seems to exhale with it, settling into the familiar rhythm that has always accompanied the closing hours of the day. The air changes before the light does. A cool current begins descending from the higher slopes where sunlight has already departed. It threads its way through narrow gullies, over weathered cliffs, and into the hidden gorge with remarkable patience. The warmth stored inside the courtyards rises to meet it, and for a brief time the two share the same space, neither lingering long enough to claim it. Invisible conversations are often the oldest ones. Prayer flags answer the descending breeze with softer movements now. Their long edges no longer flutter brightly beneath the strength of the afternoon wind. Instead, they sway in slow arcs, each gentle motion accompanied by the faint whisper of woven cloth brushing against mountain air. It is a sound almost too quiet to notice, Yet, once heard, it becomes difficult to forget. Somewhere beneath the balconies, the day's final rays touch the polished rim of a brass prayer wheel. The engraved letters briefly catch the light before slipping back into shadow. The wheel itself remains still. Its silence is complete. Its purpose has not diminished. There are moments when stillness itself becomes a form of devotion. Across the courtyard, footsteps return one by one from scattered duties. A broom rests against a wall where moments earlier it had quietly erased the traces of another day. A wooden bucket has been returned beside the well-used doorway. A folded robe waits exactly where tomorrow's morning hands will expect to find it. Nothing is misplaced. Order here is never strict. It is simply considerate. The monastery prepares gently for the coming night in the same way a family quietly arranges a home before sleep. Within the kitchens, another vessel of butter tea shares its warmth among waiting hands. Steam rises in pale ribbons before disappearing into the cooler air gathering beneath the ceiling beams. Salt, butter, and long boiled tea leaves have become something greater together than they could ever have offered separately. Perhaps every community is prepared in much the same way. Individual lives remain themselves. Shared warmth transforms them. The heavy wooden churn rests once more against the stone wall. Its smooth handle bears the polished shine left by years of careful use. No artisan could have planned such beauty. Time carved it, repetition refined it. Elsewhere, one of the elder monks pauses near a narrow opening overlooking the valley. Beyond the hidden monastery, distant ridges already wear evening's softer colors. The brilliant blue of the afternoon sky gradually yields to deeper shades that seem to invite longer thoughts and quieter breathing. He does not appear to be watching anything in particular. Perhaps he is simply allowing the mountain to continue speaking. The peaks have never required words. Neither has silence. The first low call of a conch shell drifts through the cooling air. Unlike the great copper horn, whose deep voice embraces the valley, this sound is clearer, brighter, carried with remarkable direction through the thin mountain atmosphere. It reaches distant corners of the monastery before dissolving gently among the cliffs. Its purpose is fulfilled almost immediately. Yet its echo lingers a little longer, softened by distance, until it becomes nearly indistinguishable from the wind itself. Even endings know how to become beginnings. The monastery responds without haste. A few doors close softly. Others remain open, welcoming the evening breeze into familiar corridors. Butter lamps receive another careful glance before darkness deepens further. Cotton wicks are adjusted with patient fingers, ensuring that each small flame will continue its quiet watch through the approaching night. No lamp attempts to outshine another. Together they make darkness gentle. Along the upper roofs, the clay packed so carefully after the last thaw continues releasing the day's warmth into the cooling sky. Every beam beneath it remains hidden, performing its silent work exactly as it has through storms, snowfall, and the occasional trembling of the earth. There are lives like these beams, rarely noticed, always supporting. Without them, entire worlds quietly disappear. Above the gorge, a few early stars begin revealing themselves, while the western horizon still carries traces of fading gold. The mountain receives twilight in generous layers rather than sudden change. One peak enters night, while another still glows softly beneath the departing sun. Time rarely moves equally for every place. Perhaps it never has. A raven crosses the sky alone, its dark wings briefly outlined against the remaining light before it disappears toward unseen cliffs where evening has already arrived. The silence following its passage feels fuller rather than emptier. Absence sometimes reveals what presence could not. Within the assembly hall, voices gather once more. The evening chanting begins almost imperceptibly, not as a performance, but as a continuation of breathing itself. Deep harmonic tones settle into the old stone walls where countless evenings have left their invisible traces. Symbols answer with restrained brilliance, their shimmering voices rising only long enough to meet the chant before gently dissolving into the growing stillness. The hall has heard these sounds for generations, yet they never become ordinary, because no evening is ever exactly the same. One flame leans farther than another. One breath begins a fraction sooner. One echo lingers against the timber just a little longer. Difference lives quietly inside repetition. As darkness slowly returns to the hidden monastery, the mountains once again become larger than sight alone can measure. Their outlines soften, their colors fade into calm shades of blue and gray. The immense world beyond the gorge gradually withdraws from the eyes, inviting the heart instead to listen. And somewhere between the final warmth, still leaving the ancient stones, and the first deep quiet settling over the valley once more, another evening gently opens its patient hands, carrying the monastery toward the familiar peace of night. Peace does not arrive here as something new. It slowly uncovers what has been present all along, waiting beneath the brightness of day like the stars that patiently remain beyond the blue sky, unseen until evening gently invites them back into view. The last traces of sunlight withdraw from the highest ridges. For a little while, the snow upon distant summits seems to remember the day after everything below has already accepted the night. Then even those pale reflections fade, and the mountains return to quieter shades where form matters more than color. The gorge grows still, not empty, simply attentive. The descending air from the upper slopes becomes cooler with every passing moment. It slips along ancient cliff faces, brushes across flat roofs packed with clay, and quietly follows the paths carved by gravity long before people ever chose this valley as a place of prayer. The monastery welcomes the familiar visitor without resistance. Its walls have learned the language of evening winds. The timber beams respond with almost imperceptible movements as the temperature falls. Stone slowly releases the final warmth gathered beneath the afternoon sun, offering it back to the rooms it has sheltered all day. Within those thick walls, the difference between outside and inside is never sudden. Comfort arrives gradually, like trust. In one quiet chamber, a monk lowers his gaze toward the steady glow of a butter lamp. There is no urgency in his movements. A small brass spoon rests beside the bowl, ready if another measure of butter becomes necessary before dawn. The flame reflects within the polished metal, creating the gentle illusion of another tiny light hidden beneath the first. Even a single flame can create companions. Nearby, the scent of warm butter mingles with lingering juniper until neither can be separated from the other. Together they drift through the room with remarkable patience, settling into old wood whose grain has quietly absorbed centuries of similar evenings. Wood remembers through fragrance. Stone remembers through silence. The body remembers through breath. Outside, the sky has become astonishingly clear. The thin Himalayan atmosphere offers almost nothing between the earth and the stars. Constellations emerge one after another with extraordinary sharpness, while the dark spaces between them seem deeper than those seen from lower lands. A traveler might believe the heavens have drawn nearer. Perhaps they always were. Only the air has become more transparent. Far below, the river continues its unseen journey through darkness. Its waters carry the memory of glaciers hidden beyond distant peaks, moving with the same patient certainty that guided them yesterday and will guide them tomorrow. Water never asks the mountain to hurry. The mountain never asks the river to remain. Both continue because continuing is their nature. The evening chanting has gradually become softer. Long pauses now rest between the voices, allowing the hall itself to answer with echoes too gentle to notice at first. The carved wooden columns seem almost to participate, receiving each vibration before quietly returning it to the surrounding air. Nothing inside the hall keeps the sound. Everything shares it. One of the great copper horns now rests beside the wall where earlier it greeted the morning. Folded into itself after the day's ceremonies, it reflects the warm glow of nearby lamps along its polished brass surface. Silence has become its music for now. Every instrument understands both speech and rest. Perhaps people flourish in the same balance, not by always speaking, nor by always remaining silent, but by recognizing the gentle hour belonging to each. Along a narrow exterior walkway, frost has not yet returned, though the stone already carries the first cool promise of night. A passing hand briefly touches the wall while moving through the darkness, finding reassurance in its familiar texture. Some companions never answer. Still, they remain. High above the monastery, the Milky Way slowly brightens until it stretches from one horizon to the other like a pale river flowing across the heavens. Beneath such a sky, the monastery appears almost impossibly small, yet nothing about its smallness feels insignificant. A single lamp cannot become the stars. Still, it faithfully offers light to the room entrusted to it. Perhaps that is enough. Inside one of the quieter rooms, folded bundles of roasted barley flour wait beside carefully stored provisions, gathered through the generous months. Nearby rests dried meat preserved by the cold mountain air long before winter's deeper snows arrive. The coming season has already been welcomed, not through fear, through preparation. Each stored meal is another quiet expression of confidence that tomorrow deserves to be met with open hands. Nearby, neatly arranged fuel waits beneath shelter. Dried shrubs gathered from alpine slopes. Carefully stacked dung cakes shaped beneath summer sunlight. Each piece appears ordinary. Together they become another winter survived. The monastery has never mistaken abundance for security. It has always trusted careful attention more. Beyond the walls, the mountain offers its own evening prayer without words. Loose stones settle after the warmth of day. Cold air descends through hidden gullies. Snow upon distant ridges quietly hardens beneath the returning frost. Nothing performs. Everything simply becomes what this hour asks it to be. Within the meditation chamber, breathing has grown so calm that each inhalation seems almost inseparable from the silence surrounding it. The cool mountain air enters slowly, carrying less oxygen than the air of distant lowlands, yet each measured breath arrives without struggle, guided by long practice rather than force. Breath is never hurried here. It arrives, it leaves, it returns. The rhythm asks for nothing else. As the night deepens, the monastery no longer seems separate from the mountains embracing it. White walls disappear into darkness. Roof lines soften. Courtyards become quiet pools of shadow beneath the stars. Only the lamps continue offering their gentle presence through small windows scattered across the hidden gorge. From afar, they might resemble another constellation, not above the earth, within it. And while the immense Himalayan night continues unfolding beyond every ridge and valley, those quiet lights remain awake without demanding attention, patiently keeping company with stone, wind, and sky until another unseen dawn begins its long journey toward the hidden monastery once again. The small lights ask for nothing in return. They simply continue their quiet companionship with the night, each flame holding its place while the immense darkness stretches peacefully beyond the monastery, beyond the valley, beyond every ridge whose outline has now dissolved into the gentle vastness of the Himalayas. Hours pass unnoticed here. No one counts them. Time is no longer measured by shadows crossing stone or by sunlight warming the courtyards. It is measured by the steady breathing of those who remain awake, by the patient care of lamps that continue to burn, and by the silent certainty that the mountain is still standing exactly where it has always stood. The hidden gorge sleeps without becoming empty. The wind continues its slow descent from the high passes, moving between cliffs polished by countless winters. It glides over the packed clay roofs, brushes the weathered prayer flags that now rest almost completely still, and slips quietly into the narrow passageways before finding another path toward the unseen river below. Nothing attempts to hold it. Every doorway simply allows it to pass. Perhaps peace is not something we keep. Perhaps it is something we gently allow to move through us. Inside the monastery, the last voices of evening have long since faded into silence. Yet the silence itself has become richly layered. Somewhere a timber settles almost imperceptibly as the night's colder air tightens its grain. Somewhere a tiny flame bends before recovering its upright posture. Somewhere a page within a resting scripture shifts, almost invisibly beneath the faint movement of air. The monastery has never believed silence to be empty. It has always known it to be full of gentle things. One elder remains seated before a lamp whose light has grown softer as the butter slowly gives itself to the flame. His breathing has become so calm that it seems to follow the same rhythm as the mountains surrounding him. Inhale. The cool air of the high Himalayas enters quietly, carrying the thinness that every visitor first notices and every resident gradually befriends. Exhale. Warmth returns to the room, almost unnoticed. Nothing is forced. The nothing is withheld. The breath simply continues, just as streams continue toward rivers, rivers toward distant plains, and clouds toward mountains where they may one day become snow again. Cycles ask for participation rather than control. The monastery has always understood this. It has watched children become elders, builders become memories, fresh timber darken with incense until no one recalls its original color. White walls weather beneath brilliant ultraviolet light until every season leaves another delicate signature. Still, the monastery remains itself, not because nothing changes, because everything changes together. Outside, frost quietly returns to the shaded edges of stone. The warmth gathered throughout the day has finally completed its long conversation with the night sky. Every roof now carries the coolness of altitude once again, while the immense stars above remain astonishingly bright within the clear Himalayan atmosphere. Each point of light has traveled farther than imagination easily follows. Yet all of them arrive together. Distance loses its meaning beneath such a sky. A single raven feather, left unnoticed beside an outer stair earlier in the day, now rests perfectly still against the stone. It neither belongs entirely to the bird that released it nor to the mountain that has received it. Perhaps everything eventually becomes part of the place that welcomes it. The feather asks for nothing. The stone refuses nothing. In one quiet storeroom, sacks of roasted barley wait patiently beside carefully folded wool and neatly stacked provisions prepared for the seasons ahead. There is reassurance in their stillness. The coming winter has already been greeted with thoughtful hands. Tomorrow has been honored without anxiety. Preparation here has never been an argument with uncertainty. It has always been another expression of gratitude. Nearby, the heavy copper prayer wheels stand motionless beneath the stars. Inside each rests countless, carefully rolled repetitions of a simple prayer, hidden from sight. They need not turn every moment. Even at rest, they remain exactly what they are. There is comfort in remembering that purpose does not disappear during stillness. Far above, snow settles gently upon distant summits where no human footsteps disturb the night. The mountain continues its own quiet work beyond every wall, beyond every roof, beyond every lamp. Ice forms. Stone cools. Wind changes direction. Nothing announces itself. Everything continues. The monastery has never stood apart from this rhythm. It has only learned how to dwell within it, and perhaps that has always been its greatest lesson. Not how to escape time, not how to defeat impermanence, but how to greet each passing hour with the same calm attention offered to the turning of a prayer wheel, the tending of a single flame, the sharing of warm tea, the careful placing of one stone beside another. Lives, like monasteries, are not built through extraordinary moments alone. They are quietly shaped by ordinary mornings welcomed without complaint, patient afternoons accepted without hurry, peaceful evenings released without regret, and nights like this one, where nothing seems to happen, yet everything quietly continues becoming what it has always been. Long after sleep has gently found those resting within these walls, the mountain remains awake beneath the stars. The river continues its unseen journey through the darkness. The wind continues tracing familiar paths between silent cliffs. The ancient stones continue holding the warmth they borrowed and returning it when needed. The monastery continues breathing with the valley. The valley continues breathing with the sky. And somewhere beyond the reach of memory, beyond the names of kings, pilgrims, merchants, and monks, beyond every century that has already passed, and every century still waiting to arrive, the hidden world of Hemis quietly remains, never asking to be remembered, only continuing to exist with the same patient grace that has always belonged to the mountains.